This video will cover the 2009 Math OGT problems 16 through 20. Problem 16 states, Tanya and her friends earned extra money by mowing lawns around their neighborhood. Tanya created a table to show their earnings. Gives our table here. Pedro noticed that Tanya made a mistake. His earnings were 24, not 8. How does this change affect the mean of the group's earnings? So we want to see the change, which means we need to calculate the mean as the table is, and the mean if we change that 8 to a 24. When you calculate the mean, that is the average. We add all the numbers together and divide by how many there are. When you do this, you want to do the adding of all the numbers together on a separate line of the calculator from dividing how many there are. If we just type it in and then say divide by, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's going to give you the wrong number. It only divided into the 8 instead of into everything. Let me fix this. So I'm going to go to a new line. We can type 196 divided by 8 is 24.5. Notice every time I hit the divide sign, it does make it into a fraction. That is still dividing. So our first average is 24.5. So now we change the 8 to a 24 and find the average again. If you don't want to retype everything, you can click on the original place where you added, hit backspace on your keyboard, and it erases the 8. And now I just changed that to a 24. So now our new number is 212. And I can do the same thing. I can click next to the 6 on the 196, hit backspace to get rid of it, and type in 212, and it gives me my new average of 26.5. So then we can look at our answer choices. The first one said they remained the same, which it does not. The mean increased by $2, and that's how much we went up by. 24 add to does give us the 26.5. Problem 17. A pattern of shaded and unshaded squares is shown below. It gives us each figure. In your answer document, find a formula for or describe in words the number of shaded squares in the nth figure. Find the number of shaded squares in the 50th figure. Show your work and explain your answer. So they want the shaded squares only. We have, I'm going to say F1 for figure 1. And I'm going to create a little table. We have the figures and we have the number of shaded squares. So figure 1 has one shaded square, one gray square. Figure 2, that has 3 shaded squares. Figure 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shaded squares. Figure 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded squares. And figure 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shaded squares. So one way to describe this in words, because one of the options is to describe it in words, is each figure is corresponding to the odd number. The second figure is the second odd number. Third figure is the third odd number. Fourth figure is the fourth odd number. So the nth figure, when they say nth, they're saying figure n. If we don't actually know what figure we're looking for, then it's just a generic placeholder. We could say 50th figure is the 50th odd number, or the 75th figure is the 75th odd number. But we just want to use the letter n, so we could say any figure we're possibly looking for. So to write that out would be something like the nth figure is the nth odd number. You might want to say specifically nth positive. My video seems to pause every time I hit a P, so I'm just going to put positive odd number, even though I mean positive odd number. So specifically, we would want to say it's positive because these are only going from positive odds. So to find the 50th, if you're just describing in words, you have to keep filling out your chart until you get to 50. You'd say the 6th is 11, and the 7th is 13. And you would just keep going up till you get to the 50th odd number, which can be time-consuming, but it is possible to do. The other way is to create an actual formula, and then finding the 50th figure is easier. So to create a formula for it, the basic formula when you have this, it's a linear pattern because you're going up by 2 every time. So the figure you want is going to be the starting amount at 0. Right now we only have figure 1. If we went backwards to figure 0, plus the change in between each figure times n, times the figure number. Sorry, it got kind of smushed there. So if we went back to figure 0, then we're going backwards. Instead of adding 2, we would have to subtract. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So we'd have the start at 0 is negative 1, plus the changing amount between each odd number, you're adding 2 every time, times n. So if we want the 50th figure, we're going to replace n with 50. Negative 1 plus 2 times 50. I'm going to make it so I can scroll down a bit more. I'm going to write this a little bit bigger. So we can plug that into a calculator. We can go negative 1 plus 2 multiplied by 50 is 99. Or you could have done it separately. To do it separately, you have to follow that order of operations, which says you do multiplication before addition. 2 times 50 is 100. Negative 1 plus 100 is 99. So there's our final answer. There are 99 shaded squares in the 50th figure. Question 18 says trapezoid RSTU is shown on the grid. Which graph shows the image of trapezoid RSTU after it's translated 5 units up and 3 units to the left? A translation is basically the same thing as sliding your figure around the graph. To do this, we focus on one point at a time. I'm going to focus on point S. And we follow the instructions of the translation. It said 5 up, 3 left. So each time we take a step is 1. We don't say 1, 2. We're starting here. Once you move a box, that's 1. Once you move a box, that's 2, 3, 4, 5. From here, we still have to go left. So we go 1, 2, 3, and we end up right here. When we get our new point, we call it S prime. You put an apostrophe for prime to say this is related to the original S, but it's a new S. So sometimes that's all you need. If you don't want to do the entire shape, you could say, well, S prime, that ended up at -4 and on the very top part of the graph. So if we look at our answer choices, answer choice A is the only S prime at the -4 and also the top line of the graph. You could also keep counting and go, okay, T goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left 1, 2, 3. R goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. And U goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, left. And connect those to see your new shape. Question 19. 4 numbers are shown, which shows these numbers in ordered from least to greatest. So to do that, we need each of these as a decimal. So we're going to use our calculator heavily on this problem. The first one, 31 divided by 4. You can either hit the divide sign or there is a fraction button. 31 over 4 is 7.75. For 7 and 5/8, we only really need the 5/8 part. We already know it's 7 point something. If we do 5/8 in the calculator, that gives us 0.625, so this is 7.625. Square root of 50, we're going to use the check mark button. You'll see that right here under a squared. Check mark 50 is 7.07. Now it has a lot more decimals. We only really need the 2. If you wanted to do 3, you could as well. You could say 7.01. And the last one, 7.82. When you're comparing decimals, first you look at the beginning number. All of them start with 7, so we can't differentiate any. If one of them was 7 and one of them was 8, the 8 would be bigger no matter what's behind it. After that, we check the first digit. That's the tenths place. If those can be placed in order, it puts the whole number in order. So 0 is the smallest out of all of those tenths spot. So this number is the smallest number overall. So we relate back to the original though. That means we start with square root of 50. We're either B or C. Next comes the 6, 7.625, which is 7 and 5/8. So that means our answer choice is C. We don't even have to finish because that's the only possible answer. And last problem, problem 20. Zach is packing for a trip to Scotland. He read the average temperature in the summer is 18 degrees Celsius, C stands for Celsius, during the day and 7 degrees Celsius during the night. And then it gives a formula. That's the conversion formula they're about to ask you to use. What is the difference between the high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit? So to use this formula, at where they replace the C, we want to replace it with each temperature. So Fahrenheit is 9/5 times, when it's a number next to a letter, that means multiply. So 9/5 times 18 plus 32. Again, you could try and do this by hand if you wanted, or just go to the calculator. 9/5. We have to click to the right in order to then hit multiply. 18 plus 32. 64.4. Now we plug in the 7 degrees. You can either retype the whole thing, or you can click in the box and delete the 18 with the backspace button. Type the 7, and now we get 44.6. Then there is the keyword, what is the difference? Difference is a fancy way of saying subtract the two numbers. What is the amount in between? So 64.4 minus 44.6 is 19.8. And that's our final answer. So that concludes our discussion of problems 16 through 20.